What should you do in the first month after a brain injury? As little as possible. Keep the visual and auditory stimulation to an absolute minimum. As one person put it, don't pick at the scab.
That big piece coming out right there. That's beautiful.
Most of the time, nothing is all you feel like you can do anyway. But then you'll have a day when you don't feel so bad and you start thinking, is it over? Am I better? Can I just do this? And if you're still injured, you'll find out the answers. Sorry, but no, it's not over. No, you're not better. And don't even think about exerting yourself because you'll burn out really quickly and feel like you're back at square one. To recover from a brain injury, or more accurately, because we might not actually recover, to facilitate healing from a brain injury, you've got to rest your brain. That's the way it is for heart attack patients. They've got to rest their hearts. But the brain is different from a heart, or a knee, or a shoulder. A heart attack patient wouldn't dream of trying to run around the track, or work on his taxes, or watch his team play Game 7 of the World Series. And a woman with a broken kneecap cancels her tennis game. And a guy with a dislocated shoulder won't play touch football with his kids. But here's a dilemma. Part of recovering from a brain injury involves experimenting to see what you're capable of doing. So you find out you can't read for more than, say, 15 minutes or 2 minutes because you start feeling terrible. That's the test. Wonderful. We call that a catch-22. The Germans probably have one really long word for it. That first month, besides feeling terrible most of the time, my brain felt like it had been tightened and that it was full, like after a Thanksgiving dinner. I didn't want to put anything else in it. I couldn't listen to music or read. I certainly wasn't in a vegetative state because it occurred to me then that every time we open our eyes or even hear something, we are processing information, even sitting in the backyard looking at trees. And so those of us with a brain injury need to even have downtime from our downtime. In the movie The Matrix, Neo could see the world as it really is. Lines upon vertical lines of green code raining down. Our brains receive the world as information. With my eyes open and my eardrums tender, I found that the world of information flooded into my brain, and my brain was working really hard to process it. Sometimes it shut down completely, the way a lawnmower shuts down when you run over a patch of really long grass. And I felt bad about missing so much work, and I felt I was letting my team down. I hammered out an email explaining my absence, and added, I've been told to only worry about getting better, so I'll just take one thing at a time. This includes putting together some pretty great puzzles, listening to Frank McCourt read Angela's Ashes, and I'm allowed to take walks now, so I've been seeing the autumn trees with completely new eyes, and that's not a bad thing. About puzzles, yeah, for some reason I really enjoy putting together colorful 300-piece puzzles. There was something about using my hands that felt good, maybe because I wasn't reading yet, but a lot of it was about taking the chaos of the puzzle pieces and putting them all together. I think it also served as a hopeful metaphor about putting my brain back together. And meanwhile, I was missing big parts of my life, like my youngest son Will's 2 out-of-the-park home runs. I fretted that Fidelity Investments wouldn't want me back if I was damaged goods. They only hire the best and the brightest, and now I was neither.
Well, you listen, and you listen well. You're damaged merchandise, and this is a fire sale. And you walk out of here, and your reputation won't be worth 15 cents.
Because the injury is invisible, and I look great, I had to explain that even though I look the same, it's like my brain is in traction. And I got lonely because we couldn't have friends over because talking was too hard.
Not talking to me? Well, I can understand how it can be with new friends.
I realized that if my body was laying in traction and not my brain, they could come over and sign my body cast in amusing ways. Here's an example of doing too much. I was getting a lot of get well cards, and it bothered me that Andrew got only 1 or 2, even though he was dealing with persistent back pain. I sat down and wrote him one. Something like, you were in the car with me that day, and we both know you went through the same thing I did, and I want you to know that you're my hero. The process of writing it and addressing it and stamping it and then walking it out to the mailbox was too much. I was becoming a hothouse flower. And after returning to church for the first time in 4 weeks, I immediately saw someone in the parking lot who asked me, "How are you?" And I became incoherent. And I struggle with answering that question to this day. It's an innocuous enough question, but one that requires sorting through a lot of information.
How are you, sir? I can speak English. Hello, Major. How are you today?
Think of how much information you have to process when someone asks, "How are you?" Is the person just making small talk? How much should I say? Saying I feel lousy sounds like I'm a pessimist and a loser and I need to be more of a winner with a winning attitude towards life. If I just say, "Fine, thanks," the person might think I've recovered. And when was the last time I spoke with this person? Have I mentioned the latest breakthrough I made? Or the defeat that turned into a victory because I learned from my mistake? What if I've just gone through 4 terrible days in a row? When will I know if I've dominated the conversation and the person just wants to wrap it up? And how do you ask, "And how are you?" without sounding like it's an afterthought? Because after all, my recovery is the most interesting, pressing thing on my mind. Here's an illustration why answering those kind of open-ended questions is hard. Let's say someone asks you, "What's The Godfather about?" Think about it. How would you begin? In your head, you'd be thinking along 2 tracks. One is the overarching theme, which you arrive at by, 2, sorting through various key scenes in the movie. That sophisticated thought process might look something like this. Don Corleone is shot by Sollozzo hitman. Mo Green patronizes Fredo, is rude to Michael.
The casino, the hotel. The Corleone family wants to buy you out.
The Corleone family wants to buy me out. No, I buy you out. You don't buy me out.
Michael signals leadership by starting a turf war.
I will.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Michael Rizzi, go in peace, and may the Lord be with you. Amen.
The Hollywood studio boss gets the message. And Michael teaches his new bride to drive. With a head injury, at least with mine, sorting through key scenes is hard because even if you can remember them, you have to assign importance to them. So how on earth do you begin to summarize all of that and come up with a concise one-sentence overview? Here's what the TBI thought process sort of looks like. The 5 scenes are about of equal importance, and therefore there's really no narrative that you can come up with. So when someone asks, "How are you?" it really drains the battery. What do you say and where do you begin? So I had lots of reasons to feel inadequate and guilty, like I was letting people down by being so out of commission, whether at home, with my colleagues, and even at church. On the positive side, a month to the day of the accident, I was able to read the newspaper again, and I went to one of Will's baseball games. He played spectacularly. So that was the first month.